Welcome back to the Northern Steel Podcast. I'm your host, Dominic Paskowski, and with me as always is my brother, Christopher Paskowski. We are one day away from the NFL Draft, and you will be hearing this on the day of the NFL Draft because these are uploaded every Thursday, we record every Wednesday, and I am sure you are giddy with excitement, as are we. Chris, how pumped are you for the draft to be here so soon?
Dude, I have been waiting for this for a very long time. It's something you and I have discussed for, probably the last, since the season ended. So I'm ready to get after it. I'm excited to see what kind of players that are on the Steelers boards and to just kind of see who we get.
Yeah, I think it's been really fun to go over some of the players like we've done in our past couple episodes of Positions of Need. I'm excited to see what kind of crazy draft day trades are going to happen. And I'm also excited to see the Steelers draft nobody that we scouted, which seems to be...
absolutely nobody.
Yeah, that always happen every year. That's okay. We'll love them just the same. I thought, we'll start off first with kind of an NFL roundup of sorts, like we always do.
Sure.
It's not a lot of news. This news I have seems like forever ago, but I believe it happened the day after we recorded last week's podcast, or a couple days after. We signed Tyrell Edmonds back to a one-year deal. Chris and I had mentioned, obviously, I know a lot of fans out there, we really wanted Tyrann Mathieu because it's the sexy pick, it's the Corvette pick, and maybe they were tired of waiting for Tyrann to make a decision. Maybe they're tired of they didn't want to go into the draft without that position solidified. And we always talked about that Tyrell Edmonds is there. He knows the system. He's got 60 career starts. And, he wasn't really getting a lot of attention elsewhere. I read maybe Bengals and one other team. But he decided to come back home with us for a very cheap deal on a one-year contract for, I believe, $2.5 million. Solid starter. Can't ask much more than a cheap deal like that. So...
Yeah, no.
Yeah. That's like anything to add, or?
Overall, I agree. Totally good pickup. Like you stated before, Tyrell Edmonds is someone to me that has continued to progress every single year. I know he had a lot of shadow overweighing him for being a first-round draft pick, and in our minds probably shouldn't have been, because I know he was kind of rated around that third round when we did get him. But overall, I mean, like you were saying, Dom, he knows the system. He's young. He stays healthy. And it seems like the defensive backfield really seems to get along with him, which also chemistry is something that's super important. And I don't think he was necessarily the problem of last year's defensive struggles. I think, like you said before, getting Tyrann Mathieu would have been awesome. It would have been super cool. I have no idea where he is going to end up, but at the end of the day, I'm really happy with getting Tyrell Edmonds back, especially for such a cheap one-year deal. You never know what could happen. The dude could ball out. We could sign him big next year, and if he doesn't, I guess good riddance, and then we get someone else.
Yeah, I don't know what safeties. I haven't done the research to look up who may be available next year in free agency, but I do know that we may still draft a safety, even though we signed Tyrell back, because it is on a one-year deal. So look out for that in the draft. We did an episode on it. If you haven't listened to it, I believe it is episode 5, I think. So check back on that. Between now and tomorrow, or actually, you're hearing this on draft day, so listen to it quick to hear all of our safety prospects we mentioned. In other news, we talked about Deebo Samuel last week a little bit, with wide receivers kind of going on the market randomly for trades and how crazy the wide receiver market has been this offseason. Also, who just got added to the wide receiver trade market is Cadarius Toney from the New York Giants. Cadarius Toney was the Giants' first-round pick in 2020, 2021. Sorry, thank you. And he was pick number 20. Kadarius Toney flashed. I believe he had 200 yards in one game, but for his entire season, he only had 460-ish yards, I believe. I think he was injured for a lot of that as well. but he's fast. He's a playmaker. I'm not really sure what the disconnect is. I know he's gotten in trouble. I know he's had some injury things. I know the Giants aren't really known right now for being the most well-run organization. So I'm not really sure why, but he says he wants to be traded, and they are fielding offers. They're also fielding offers for Sterling Shepard. So I don't know what receivers they're going to keep, but they're fielding offers. I'm interested with the Cadarius Toney because it sounds like they want a high pick for him, and they're not going to get it. I'm going to be real honest with you.
No.
We don't really have to talk about it much because we've kind of ran over the whole wide receiver craziness of this offseason so far. But Chris and I have mentioned, too, that if they do lower that price tag, Cadarius Toney for at most a third is pretty good because it helps us out with the wide receiver position and probably better than any wide receiver we might get in the third, but especially for a fourth if they take that. If they take a fourth, I would definitely take Cadarius for a fourth.
And it's really tough, too, because I feel like the Giants, at least the last few years, have been such a interesting organization where they have a lot of really good individual talents, but they can't utilize them to their fullest potential. I mean, look at Saquon, all right? Like, I think so many people are holding out for Saquon, wanting him to be this big stud, and he can do it, I think. They just don't have a line. And then you look at Cadarius Toney now. I mean, I wouldn't say he's bad by any means because look at who's throwing him the ball. You're right. Like I need to see
Saquon traded.
Oh, for sure. I think he needs to see himself traded.
Yeah, I think the NFL wants to see that. I think him being on the Bills would be nuts. I mean, you might as well give the Bills a ring, but that'd be sweet.
Oh, we've said that the last 2 years, though, I feel like.
Yeah, I know. That's the Bills curse, if you want to call it. But that was kind of like the bigger NFL news to me. I didn't really have much else to say on that. I will move on to this past weekend on Saturday, I believe. I went to an event called Arise with the Guys. Not to, we don't need to get into anything too serious about it, because, they always say that the two things you don't talk about are politics and religion. But it was a really great event to go to. It is a church-sponsored event, and Big Ben was receiving the 2022 award there. And Tony Dungy was handing out the award, so Big Ben was there. I was in the crowd. I got to see him interact with Tony Dungy. It was great hearing him talk about finding his faith and wishing that he would have talked about his faith more in the public eye early on in his career. Wish he would have found it earlier on in his career because he kind of just chalked up all his achievements to just his own skill, not that it came from anywhere. He talked about fatherhood a lot, which was really good for me to hear. If you don't know, I am a father of two. And
what?
Yeah, surprise. You're pregnant. And his emotional stuff is really good. He had a lot of great things to say, especially from the father and son relationship. And that was really nice. It's nice to hear Ben speak candidly. He threw some footballs to some kids. And I'd really recommend you, if you're interested in hearing about this type of situation, about Ben's faith and fatherhood, and also what he plans on doing after the NFL, I would recommend going to search it up on YouTube. It's look up Ben Roethlisberger, Arise with the Guys, and you can watch his entire speech about it. I thought it was quite enjoyable. Cool. That's pretty much all I had to say about that.
Very cool.
This may be a little quick, Chris, but that's pretty much all I have right now. I say let's move on to our next topic, the topic we've been doing. If you have been keeping up with our podcast and been listening, we mentioned that we might only be doing 4 positions. Well, guess what, baby? We're doing a 5th position. We're going to be highlighting another position of need for the Steelers right before draft is about to kick off. And, our offense wasn't very good last year, so you would think that we'd have a lot of offensive positions we'd be talking about. But no, we're going to talk about the defense again. Because Tomlin, I think, makes a good point. You shore up a lot of this defensive stuff, and you kind of just let Mitch and Najee and the rest of the gang kind of roll off the punches. But if the defense is stout, it's going to be tough to score. So with defense, we're going to go talking about defensive line. Now, defensive line, they may draft, they may not. The reason why I think that is a hole for them is because, one, Stephon Tuitt, still not exactly sure where his head's at, where his emotional state is at, if he is going to continue to play football with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And two, Tyson Alualu's coming off a season-ending injury, and he's also older. He's in his mid-30s. So I think it's important to maybe try to, we drafted Isaiah Loudermilk last year. He shined. We talked about his name is kind of Wormley. He shined from the Ravens.
Dude, I was scared you were about to bring Mondo into this.
No, not Mondo. It was a shorter one that he played really well in the run. We talked about him. He was a free agent.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Defensive tackle.
Yeah, that's who we're talking about. But yeah, I just don't know the name.
Well, now it's bothering me, so now I need to know.
All right, hey, you keep going. I'll look it up.
Montravius Adams.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Good old MD.
So we have some good line depth there. There are some flashes of players there, but I do think it'd be nice to maybe pick up another one in this draft. And I think there's some really good depth there. The thing is I feel like we've had a lot of holes. You and I have talked about other positions of need in these past couple weeks where we feel like there's so much good talent in rounds 2 through 4 that they can't get all these guys. And it kind of makes me leaning towards maybe trading away our first round pick or some more middle picks. But, don't shoot me if that happens. Anyways, I thought I'll start first, Chris. I kind of picked, like I normally do, 3 guys who might be drafted a little bit earlier, rounds 2 through 3. I don't think any of these guys will make it to round 4. And there's a common theme with the defensive linemen I picked, and it is big. These are some big old boys. They're strong, and they're bullies. The very first guy I actually saw from a mock draft by Alex Kozora, who we've mentioned multiple times. His name is Logan Hall. Logan Hall is from Houston. He is 6'6", 283 pounds. And he ran a 4.88 in college on the 40-yard dash.
Ooh, that's not bad.
No, not at all for a defensive end. His stats, I'm not sure if he was the starter all the times, but this past year he definitely took a large leap. Because in his first 3 years playing in his college career at Houston, he had 1.5 sacks. But last year he had 6. He doubled his tackles completely in 1 year. He had 47 tackles last year, 24 solo, 23 assists, 6 sacks, and I'd be very curious to see what his tackles for loss are, but unfortunately this particular page isn't listing it. Maybe if I go to see all, it will say. One thing I have to say about no, it doesn't say. Anyways, the thing about Logan Hall, watching him being 6'6", is that's just it. He is huge on the line. He towers over everyone, and he can play. It seemed like Houston is a smaller college. They don't play the toughest competitions, but it seemed like this last year where he kind of exploded onto the scene with these better stats that he was blowing through the line consistently. He was causing a lot of pressure, ripping through double teams, hitting the bend around, also containing the pocket. It seemed like he caused a lot of havoc, and if he wasn't necessarily the cause of the havoc, he would push the pocket towards where maybe a better rush was coming from. Now, we all know TJ Watt's going to provide a lot of rush, so if you can always push the pocket more towards TJ Watt, that's only going to help us out more so. But he also caused a lot of havoc. It's very easy to watch his highlights. He also wore number 92. That's a very good number for Steeler fans, so it was easy to pick up on what he was doing. He had a big arm brace. He looked like a bionic cyborg. It was great. There's not really much more to say. I think he looked really good. I know he's from a smaller school, but because of his size and speed, he could go as early as the second round. But a third-round pick for this guy. I know we got a lot of needs, but I think they'll look really good. Matter of fact, all these people I picked, I would love for them to get. I just don't think. Obviously, we just can't get everybody.
Sure.
The next guy I got here is DeMarvin Leal. I glad I watched a YouTube video first because that is how you pronounced it. It is not Leal, it's Leal. DeMarvin Leal, he hails from a college.
Texas and A&M.
Correct, Chris. I was stalling for time as my internet loaded up. And it's still loading, but yep, Texas A&M, but that is correct. He is a little bit shorter, obviously still a big guy. He's the defensive tackle. He is 6'4", 283 pounds. His 40-yard dash is 5 on the dot. 5 seconds.
Wow.
Man. DeMarvin Leal, kind of the same situation as a defensive tackle. It was crazy to see how well he was able to blow through the line as well, just disrupt and when he got to the quarterback, you would feel it. He would really just destroy guys. Are you watching highlights right now?
I am watching highlights. That very first one where he just like quickly does a spin move and gets around the guy, that was smooth.
Yes, he's got agile moves. He's like a really good athlete for his size and weight, and able to contain on running plays, able to bull rush the quarterback. He also causes a lot of havoc and pressure. He can also contain the pocket and push it a lot like Logan Hall can. I mean, I don't want to ramble on and keep talking about things that don't need to be discussed or repeated just to fill up time. But there's not much I didn't really like from his tape.
And the thing that I'm noticing is he just keeps strip sacking our future quarterback, Matt Corral. So, I mean, that's always a good sign. God, I hope not.
Unlike Logan Hall, who kind of had pedestrian years and then exploded, well, you know what? DeMarvin Leal, his was kind of similar. His first 2 years in college, he had very similar stats, amassing only 4.5 sacks total in his first 2 years of college. But last year, he had 8.5 sacks. So almost doubling his entire college sack total. 58 total tackles, 27 solo. Like I said, 8.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 2 pass defense. I also noticed that too. He's able to get his arms up and swat the ball away. That's something that Cam Hayward has gotten really, really good at over the years, and would be nice for a good mentor for him to continue to do that. I'm as you're seeing the highlights, Chris. I mean, not much I don't like about him either. I've seen him mock drafts as early as round 2, possibly round 3. I would love him.
Sure.
So he looks really great.
Yeah, he looks like a baller to me. So
this last name that I have, it might be a surprise to Chris, but maybe not you, the fans who are so knowledgeable of the players that the Steelers are scouting. But this is a name I've seen on mock drafts where maybe it's just the name itself. I haven't really been too excited about it. I'm glad I was able to watch his tape because I think he fits the bill as well. He fits the theme I've been talking about. His name is Perrian Winfrey. He's from Oklahoma. He is also a true defensive tackle, another big boy. He is 6'4", 290 pounds. His arm or his hands are the biggest, and I believe his arm, his like wingspan, is also the largest of all 3 guys I mentioned.
he looks like a linebacker.
He is, man, there's no way to say it, but he's a bully. It really is when you watch his tape. His 40-yard time is a 4.89 for being 290 pounds.
My gosh.
Yeah. He was also, I noticed that I thought he was almost better at the run defense than the other 2. Not to say the other 2 weren't good, but their specialties were more at sacking the quarterback and chasing them and causing havoc that way and trying to get turnovers. Where this guy, whatever lineman is in front of Perrian, he is being pushed backwards. He's just a bully.
Sure.
So on run defense is really good because he's able to just take these linemen and push them back towards the quarterback, back towards the handoff to cause a disruption immediately, hopefully open up some holes for some middle linebackers. Hello, Devin Bush. So I thought that was really great. That's sometimes, as cool as it is to find linemen that can cause havoc and I'm saying that word way too much. But to find these linemen that can, put pressure on the quarterback and make their own plays. Sometimes all you just need is a big body that can just take the middle of the line and push it backwards and push the whole pile backwards, and that's what this guy does. He's a line of scrimmage mover. I really liked his tape as far as like that stuff goes. I think he could fit in well. I wouldn't take him in the second. I think third round would be where he would go. I would love if he dropped it to fourth. That'd be a big value, but I doubt it. The thing is this is where tape gets kind of messy, right? It's where highlight tape gets a little confusing, and it's hard to judge a player just on a highlight tape because his stats, I'm not really sure where the disconnect is or where the cutoff is. He has played in the college for only 2 years, according to his stats on ESPN.
Oh.
As far as sacks go, he really jumped him up last year, but he really hasn't done a lot. I mean, his first year tackles, he had 17 total, and his last year he had 23 total. Just jumped it up a little bit. 11 solo tackles, 12 assists, 5.5 sacks, which is good. The year prior, he only had half a sack, and he had 1 forced fumble. But with only 5.5 sacks, I would love to see the tackle for loss. I'm not really seeing that as a stat. So I don't know where his downfalls are. I don't know maybe why he would be drafted later, I guess. The stats show me that he's not super, super productive, I guess, with a low amount of tackles. But again, if you can have a guy that kind of hold the line and push the line of scrimmage backwards and then let your other guys eat, like a Cam Hayward, a TJ Watt, even Alex Highsmith, that's kind of what all you're really asking for at that point.
Sure.
So I think all those guys are potential players to get, and maybe they'll draft none of them. But that's what I got for you, Chris. So if you want to go on with your 3 guys, I'm excited to hear them.
Yeah, no, and like always, everyone, please just feel free to check out these players for your own. We just kind of try to pick, the players that we've heard about, or at least just random people that we've seen to kind of look up some tape. So we highly encourage you to, find some people yourself, and or to look at these highlight tapes too, and just kind of build your own opinion. It's kind of fun going into a draft and really knowing, like, oh, I know this guy. Oh, I know this guy, and it's. I feel like, Dom, I don't know about you. It's been a lot of fun for me to kind of research and see who all these people are before tomorrow.
Oh, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I always thought that defensive line should be a position of need for us to draft. Can you hear me at all?
That was really bad. What happened?
Could you not hear me?
No, I can hear you now. I could hear you. You sounded like those air pilots with like the.
Yeah, I'm not. I had to switch headphones again. Mine were dying, but I had mentioned that I always thought defensive line was an area of need for the Steelers, and I just wasn't really interested in watching the tape up to this point because there were so many other positions of need I wanted to look at first. But yeah, I'm really excited. I got to look at some of these players. I've seen Perrian Winfrey. I've seen DeMarvin Leal on mock drafts. And now watching their tape, I can go, oh, you know what? That is pretty exciting. I think they are good players. I think they could fit the system. And if they draft them, now I know who they are, and that's a little extra hype. Same with yourself. I know you have some players that are going to be coming out here that have been listed on some Steelers mock drafts. And it'll be exciting to see what they kind of look like, too.
Well, without further ado, let's just jump right into my 3 guys. The first dude I'm going to talk about is Travis Jones out of Yukon, standing at 6'4", 325 pounds. This dude is big. Like, he has the height, he has the weight to him. And the very first thing that I noticed that jumped out to me watching his highlight tapes is he's not a boulder, he's a rock. All right, and what I mean by that is he's not easily moved. As soon as the ball is snapped, very rarely do you see the line pushing him back or pushing him to a direction in which they want to go, which is huge, especially when stopping the run. And I feel like there's too many times watching our Steelers front line be pushed, and there's this huge gap and hole. In fact, I think about the one game that, of course, Dom and I unfortunately attended against the Vikings last season. I believe there's a picture where Dalvin Cook took an inside handoff. And I think our closest defensive interior linemen were probably 10 yards apart from each other because that's how big that hole was.
Yeah, it was a big yikes. Big yikes.
Like I said, Travis Jones is big and he's immovable. Honestly, that's something that I really enjoyed about him. He's able to stand his ground, and he's able to collapse on the play, which is huge. A lot of times, if a quarterback is trying to run up the middle, he's able to get off that block and tackle him right on the spot. Or he's able to, what I've seen, bull rush players into either a quarterback or a running back and disrupt a play really easily, which was awesome to see.
Sure.
Yeah. So he ran a 4.92 40. So at 325 pounds to run under a 5, I'd say is pretty dang good.
Yeah, not bad at all.
No, he had 48 total tackles this last season, with 7.5 tackles for loss and 4.5 sacks. So I'd say look out for Travis Jones in the draft this year. I know that I've seen him projected around that 2-3, and I've seen his name a couple times for us. To me, he was always kind of everything I read was like he's the smaller version of Jordan Davis. So we'll see what happens there. Sure. But that would be really cool because Jordan Davis is like probably my favorite defensive lineman in the whole draft. So even if we could get a miniature air quotations version of him, that'd be pretty sweet.
So obviously sacks weren't as high as maybe some of these other players, but again, like we mentioned, being a big defensive tackle, he's over 300 pounds. You just want a guy who's kind of there to push the line of scrimmage, and it sounds like he does that and holds the run. Also, I'm glad you brought up Jordan Davis because, yes, if you are listening, we here at North and Steel Podcast, Chris and I both really love Jordan Davis and would love for him to be a Steeler. I just don't find it very realistic. But, come draft night, if that happens, we'll be pumped.
Oh, for sure. The next guy that is on my list is actually kind of a fan favorite of mine. His name is Matthew Butler. He plays for the University of Tennessee. You'll notice a lot with my trends on my 3 guys is they are all 6'4". So I don't know why that worked out the way it did. But he's 6'4", 295 pounds. So he's a little bit of a smaller guy as far as weight goes. But that's not bad. He's still a big dude. And he ran a 5 flat 40. So not terrible speed. I would say he's pretty average as far as looking at other defensive linemen. Looking at his stats, looking at his highlights, he's kind of a dude that can use his hands really effectively. It's something that I really liked. He's constantly chopping on people and trying to swim around them, and I think he has a really, really, really good technique with it. And I think his edge around speed is kind of what separates him from a lot of other people. Once he's able to get past that block, it's almost like he ducks down and then is able to get in there. So, again, watch his highlight tape. I think he's really passionate about the game, which is huge. In fact, if you look him up on YouTube, there's a video right underneath that is kind of like a small documentary about him. And I think he not only fits the Steelers mold as far as a player goes, because he's competitive and aggressive and just can kind of disrupt plays, but he's a teammate and he's just a competitor and he's really passionate about the game. He's a guy who said right from the start when he got there, something that his father told him is to always leave a place better than how you came into it. And he said that's a motto that's really taken him from start of his career at Tennessee to where he is now. And so he's like, I don't only want to be remembered as a football player, but I also want to impact my community, my teammates, my family. I want to impact the world. And he's done that by being a part of charities already and all that stuff. So, I mean, just a neat little tidbit. I know it's not about his football life, but as far as overall class, I just really enjoyed him and being able to hear him speak, and it was just really cool. So I highly recommend looking at that video. Looking at his stats, he had 47 total tackles last year with 8.5 tackles for loss and 5 sacks. I've seen him kind of go more of the 4th round and on kind of a thing. But even looking at his first 4 years before his last one, he definitely left the place better than he started. All of his years before, never really got above 3 tackles for loss or 2 sacks. His tackles remained the same, but he jumped up to 8.5 and then 5 sacks for both career highs. So he's a pretty cool guy, and I wouldn't mind seeing the Steelers take him later on in the draft.
Yeah, I think 4th round is kind of where I agree. Watching his tape, that may be the earliest he would probably go. Like you said, good player, kind of fits the Steelers' bill of a model player as far as personality goes. But as far as skill goes, watching this tape, not a bad thing. I felt like he was just, he didn't really cause a lot of things on his own, but he did have that high motor, like you mentioned. He was able to just kind of keep the pocket contained, and if something broke around to him, he was able to pick up the sack. But we mentioned we've got a lot of people that can put the quarterback under pressure so that that hole could end up running right into his lap. So not a bad thing at all.
No, not at all. So the last guy I've seen him kind of at the bottom of Steelers mock draft boards, and that's Noah Ellis out of Idaho, University of Idaho, I think.
I'll check.
Idaho.
Double check.
Yeah, University of Idaho. Again, 6'4". He's a beefy guy. He is 359 pounds, so about a 360.
Holy buckets.
He's good. I think what kind of puts him down there lies the conference that he plays in, and also the fact that he has Rich Eisen speed, running a 5.66 40.
Oh, man.
So he's not the fastest dude. Granted, I know what you're saying. Being on the defensive line, you do not have to be the fastest guy out there. That is true, but it's definitely an attractive trait. Hence why Jordan Davis and guys like that are really seeing up there. On top of their skill level, they are so fast, which is, you just don't see that. So it's really attractive. And like I said, Rich Eisen speed, that's just not what I'm looking for.
Put Rich Eisen on blast.
I love you, Rich. You're a great guy, but I feel like you always say it yourself whenever you look at or go to the combine. You're like, well, let's see how I stack up against this guy. I feel like you'd win against Noah Ellis. So looking at Noah Ellis's tape, it's obviously I'm looking at highlights, so I'm liking what I see. He's big, which definitely plays to his advantage. So he's not really able to be moved a lot. I mean, you try moving a 360-pound guy, it's just not going to work out too well in your favor. So I would definitely see Noah Ellis as a depth piece for the Steelers. Whether that's sitting behind Montrevious Adams or Alualu, or it's kind of seeing those guys out there if they are going to be. And but I think that's good. Like I stated before when I was talking about Travis Jones being immovable, it's something that you need in that front, and it definitely just takes away from any kind of holes opening up. So I don't know. I think Noah Ellis, if we were to pick him up, would be great in the last couple rounds. His last season for Idaho, he had 46 tackles and 6.5 tackles for loss. So nothing bad. I could not find any sacks on there, so I don't know if he just didn't have one or if the school just doesn't record it, because I couldn't find his stats anywhere other than his school website.
Sure.
But I mean, definitely check them out. I mean, you might see something that I don't, and it's not saying that I'm low on the guy. I think there's more exciting players, but like I said, if we were to get him the last couple of rounds of the draft, I would be like, yeah, I know him.
I mean, I just want to say first, 46 tackles I think is pretty good. I was not expecting that by watching this tape. There's a reason by watching this tape that a lot of people have drafted him in the 6th or maybe even 7th round. Not say that he's bad, but when these other guys are pushing the line of scrimmage based on their power, he definitely looks like he's using more of his size. I mean, he is 360 pounds. That is a hard person to move, especially when they're trying to use their legs to push you. So in the conference that he was playing in the Big Sky Conference, he was able to push the line very well because of his big size. But obviously the concern with him being the reason why he would be drafted so late is his actual athleticism. His 40-yard time was pretty slow. I don't know how fast he is laterally either. How well can he shed blocks by actual NFL pro linemen? Since he played in a division of Big Sky, can he develop more power to use with his weight, or is he just going to use his weight? Because I don't think that's going to work every single time. But not a bad pick at that late in the draft either.
No, and those are good things that you brought up. I was looking at his scouting report, looking at his strengths and everything with his strengths, just talking about how massive of a guy he is and how he can just create a pile in that middle and he's just a strong tackler and just kind of like an anchor of the defense. But like you said, his weaknesses are just that he's raw. He's raw at the position. He doesn't have a ton of experience there, especially playing at that conference. Foot speed is low. I mean, fundamentally, it sounds like he's not the best, and he relies too much on his size rather than his skill. So maybe there's some development needing to be had when he gets to the pros. But I mean, he definitely can probably make at least some leaps once he makes it to the pro.
Yeah, it looks like he doesn't have. It looks like he necessarily doesn't play with a lot of technique. He just uses his natural size, but not the end of the world. It's coachable. So yeah,
for sure.
Well, I think those are all great options. Even Noah, as late as he could go, but obviously, if you've been listening to all of our episodes, there's a lot of holes that the Steelers can fill with this draft, but there's not a lot of draft picks. That's why Chris and I had mentioned earlier that as exciting as the first round pick is, it might be, depending on who's there at 20, it might be nice to maybe trade back and get some more 2 through 4s because there's a lot of great talent in the round 2 through 4s, at least in Chris and my opinion, there is.
Yes, sir.
I thought next, Chris, we got some little bit of time, we can continue to keep talking about some tweets we've been sending out and the reactions we get from other Steeler fans. That's been actually really fun to connect with other Steeler fans and get their opinions on things and see how what other people are thinking. Sometimes we get some Yinzer opinions, but hey, that's okay. We like to hear them. We like to see them. And I like to have a couple. I know we post every single day, but a lot of the posts this week have been related to videos I've made about positions of need that we've talked about in the podcast, and some people just giving their insight on if we think we're going to draft someone from the people that we've talked about or somebody else. But so I just have a couple different ones here. The first one being, Chris had posted a question which I think is a great question, and we got a lot of responses on it. And by a lot, I mean 6, but we're pretty small. So
that's a lot for us, so I'll take it.
That is a lot. With Edmonds signing back with the team, do you feel safety is still a position of need in this year's draft? I think it is. Chris, what about you?
Oh, definitely. I mean, other than Edmonds, who do we got on the backfield? We have, oh gosh, why can't I think of his name? The guy we just got last year.
Norwood.
We got Trey Norwood. And then I believe it's our special teams guy, Killebrew, is technically the third string safety for us.
Yeah, and technically we got Marcus Allen as well.
Sure.
Who is actually in a twisting, surprising situation, is being paid more than Edmonds this year. So
isn't he the special teams captain though?
Killebrew might be taking that spot because Killebrew played special teams really well last year. But Marcus Allen is just a great all-around team locker room person. Everyone loves Marcus Allen. There's a reason why he's kind of stuck around as long as he has. Kind of similar to like a Robert Golden back in the day.
Yeah.
But with that question, we had some answers. Our boy Big Slime, legend of Steeler Heart,
as always,
he said his opinion is that safety is less of a need, but I still think we'd grab one since we only brought Edmonds back on a 1-year deal. So grab a young guy to sit behind him for a year, and if he doesn't get another contract, at least we have a young guy with 1 year experience behind him. Yeah, I agree with that. I do think that the only safeties kind of worth grabbing are in rounds 2 through 4, in my opinion. Especially if you're gonna have someone sit behind Edmonds and become a starter next year, you still need to draft somebody with a higher in the draft to do that. But that's just my opinion on it. Eddie Harlow, short, sweet, simple. He just said later in the draft. You got it, Eddie. Thank you for commenting on the tweet. Thanks, Eddie Harlow, too. I agree. We should draft a safety. I don't know what later in the draft is. If later in the draft is after round 1, you are correct. We should draft someone later in the draft.
Yeah.
Oh, this tweet was deleted. That's good. This is from Stolen Curtain at Stolen Curtain 7. He says no, actually, to not draft a safety. That this is a prove-it year for Edmonds. He thinks if Edmonds doesn't pan out, that we can go safety next year. Kind of like how I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, that very well could be the case. I'm not really sure what free agent safeties are available next year. And you know what, Chris? Why don't you? What do you think about a possible that of like not getting another safety this year and waiting till next year while I kind of look up maybe some potential safeties for next year?
No, I think that's a really good point. I mean, I definitely am thinking out loud a little bit because I do think Trey Norwood played above his draft pick last season. I mean, especially, what was he, a 6th round guy? I think.
Yes, or 7th even. I don't remember exactly.
Or 7th. And I know a lot of people, especially Steeler fans, have brought up how he definitely was a steal with how late in the draft that we got him. And I feel like he did a really good job. Having him behind Edmonds, I'm not upset about it, and I'm actually kind of excited to see how he progresses this year if he did better than expected last season. But I think with who we got, it would definitely be nice to get another young guy in there. But
my only thing, not to cut you off with that, is I believe Trey Norwood, his skill set, because he is more of a zone safety who wants to get picks, I believe his role is more of Minka's. I believe he's more of a free safety backup than it is a strong safety backup, because he'll be kind of roaming the middle of the field, trying to go back and forth like Minka does. But, again, there are still some safeties out there. Jesse Bates, again, from Cincinnati, I think they must have only gave him a 1-year deal. So he may be done, which I would love. Just Jesse Bates for next year if we don't get a safety this year in the draft. There's also both Jordan Poyer and Jimmy Ward. They're a little on the older side. They're going to be turning 32 by that time. There is not a bunch of names. I mean, Derwin James, no way Chargers will give him a contract extension, so kind of don't even want to think about that at all. The rest of the names, though, not really too excited on the rest of the names. Maybe Jabril Peppers, depending on how he ends up in New England. He's on a 1-year contract there. Maybe Keanu Neal, who is a potential acquisition this past offseason after his 1-year contract with Tampa Bay is up. There's not a vast variety of options. So, and maybe that opens up. Every year in the offseason, players get released that you're kind of always surprised. You would never think they could get released. I mean, maybe Jamal Adams sucks and he gets released, so we could get something like that. I don't know.
Worst comes to worst too, Dom. Don't mean to cut you off, but does the name Jordan Battle mean anything to you?
It doesn't, but I do. I believe I did see that on there.
Yeah, he's the top prospect for next year at safety, so I'm curious to see how he's going to play for Alabama. I mean, granted,
sure,
it is Alabama, but I've seen a lot of his name, so if we're in the looking for a safety and he's there, I would not mind that at all.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's also a really strong name for a safety too. So
yeah.
So yeah, that's a potential option. Thanks for writing us out. Thank you for writing to us, Stolen Curtain. Tim Hartshorn at Timbo Slice 1313. He said it's not a need, but I could see us going safety early since it's just a one-year deal with Edmonds. Got to agree there. I think there's some options we could go again 2 through 4. And Shaquille Gregory at Shaquille _1992 said we could get Nick Cross in the third. That's great. I love getting another player to look at that he wasn't part of the safety prospects that you and I looked at, but I actually have seen his name a lot, and I will be sure to look at his tape to see kind of what kind of player he is and how excited we could be if that is a potential route they go, because that is not a safety we looked at all. Moving on to one more tweet, and then we'll wrap it up here. We had asked the question. We didn't get a lot of responses from this, but that's okay. I mean, if you go onto the Steelers community Twitter page, we have mentioned before in the past, people are posting mock drafts left and right. So if you want to see more mock drafts, I would suggest going there from other fans. There's even some really funny meme ones, like someone had posted trading the Jaguars all of our picks and all of next year's picks and drafting Connor Hayward. So there's just always some funny stuff on there.
It's not a joke.
The question we had, I guess, is what does the ideal 7-round Steelers draft look like to you? Looking for as many mocks as possible, and we got 2, but that's fine. RG, Mr. Hammers, at Mr. Hammers, he said he mentioned trading up for Pickens to get him in the third, and in his scenario, Malik falls to 20. So here's what he had, Chris. In the first round, he had Malik at 20. He had trading up to number 35 in the second round by giving the Jets our third-round pick next year to get George Pickens. Picking up Marcus Jones in the third. We've talked about him before. Picking up Matt Waletzko, a tackle from UND. Not really sure about that player at all. I don't know anything about him. Just by knowing the school he went to at UND, can't say I'm very excited about it, but you never know. Round 6, defensive lineman, he picks up Curtis Brooks. Don't know much about that. Round 7, he picked up Josh Johnson. We covered him in our wide receiver episode. That'd be a great pick, and especially in the 7th round. And like most drafts you'll see if you end up going on the community page, his last pick is Connor Hayward. Obviously because he's Cam Hayward's brother, but he's also a special team beast, a good depth piece overall, and it is probably just a good last pick to just grab.
Yeah, I remember seeing Mr. Hammer's tweet, and I was happy about it. You know, he was the first one to reply, and I know you and I have said this before, but I do not want to trade up to get a quarterback. If one falls to us at 20, especially if it's Pickett or Willis, I will be very happy about that. But, you know, Pickens is by far my favorite wide receiver, and I have a hard-on for Marcus Jones. So we'll, very, very first 3 picks in his draft I'm very happy about. Intrigued to see how the other guys are, but overall, I would be pretty happy with that pickup, especially with Josh Johnson later in the round. I feel like you have 3 that I know of very solid players selected.
Totally. That his PFF grade, which it doesn't matter, PFF, who cares? But it was an A-, and we got one more mock draft from Steven Twist Kearns at Twisted Idiot. That's a great handle. It's a really great handle. His PFF draft grade on his 7-round mock was an A. So again, PFF, their mocks are kind of whatever, but not bad nonetheless. He also had Malik falling to us at number 20. Our second-round pick getting tackle Abraham Lucas, who I've seen. I think he's a huge, giant tackle. And the round 3 is Marcus Jones again. And we've seen a lot of mocks with Marcus Jones, Chris. It's got to make you happy, so hopefully we can pick him up. Round 4, he goes for another tackle, getting Kellen Dyche out of Arizona State. I've seen that name a lot on mock drafts. Round 6, he goes to Quandre White, running back from South Carolina. Round 7, Jack Sanborn, a linebacker from Wisconsin. And round 7, who we just talked about, he goes with Noah Ellis on his last pick. Not bad. It definitely covers a lot of positions of need for sure.
No, and for sure. And again, I really can't complain with his draft selection. And I think I said as a reply, I've seen Abraham Lucas
Yep.
brought up a ton, especially as like a second and third round guy. And I have absolutely nothing about him. I think that's always the tough thing once we get to the draft is, especially when the Steelers need linemen, we need big guys and studs on there. It's just so boring to watch lineman tape, and I really wish it wasn't because I was like, yeah, I'll check it out. But if Lucas is a dog and everything, I'm very happy about it, and I'll be thrilled.
Yeah, obviously we know the names of some of the stud linemen that could go earlier, like obviously Charles Cross, Kenyon Green, Linderbaum, even Penning and Raymond, I believe, or however you pronounce his last name. We've seen those names.
Oh, Raymond.
But like Chris said, I'm just going to trust the Steelers on whatever lineman they pick. I'm not saying they always do a good job because Kendrick Green wasn't like the most solid pick, but Dan Moore has done okay. Dotson has done okay as later round lineman picks. So, if they get a lineman in a later round of a name that's not one of the top 5 names that we know, we'll just kind of trust the process and hopefully that they can fill in. So, but yeah,
yes, sir.
We appreciate those responses again on Twitter. Please follow the Northern Steel Podcast on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, and on YouTube. We post on there. We try to post every day, if not at least a couple days. Chris and I have hit 100 listeners or 100 listens. Yeah, very exciting. Small number, but we're excited about it. We're hoping to keep growing and keep reaching out to the Steeler fans. Hopefully you guys like what we're saying. We're going to try and also to improve quality in these podcasts. I am working on a jingle to open up the podcast. I'm just very busy with work, but we're working on to get something else in there. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Please be on the lookout for, since you're listening to this on draft day, I will be going live and I'll be reacting to the entire first round of the draft. It'll be on twitch.tv / Northern Steel Podcast. I will be doing a little bit of drinking. I'll be doing a little dancing. I'll be doing some predicting. We'll be talking about it. Chris will join me later. He's working that night, but he'll be there potentially around 8:30 or 9. And be on the lookout for that. It's a very exciting time, but thank you to everyone who listens to the podcast, and we're excited to see who we draft. Chris, you got any last words?
Nah, Dom, I always feel like you wrap it up very nicely. Just again, thank you all so much. We want to include all of you as much as we can and make this more of a family than anything else. So thanks again for helping us reach those 100 total listens. Thank you for following us on all social media platforms and for listening to our podcast. We seriously cannot be more grateful.
And with that, enjoy the draft. We'll see you next week when we go over all the players in full. Have a great week. Have a great night. Peace out.
Peace.